Welcome, friends, family, everyone to Live Interactive English. I am Shane.
I am Winnie.
And today we are looking at part 2 of the mountains I call home.
Right, and as we have learned, there are a lot of great mountains in the US. I actually did talk about a really scary moment where I met with a wild hog in a mountain or a hiking trail in Hong Kong.
Yes.
But speaking of which, what are the tallest mountains you've ever hiked?
In the US, there is a mountain called Mount Whitney, which is about 4,400 meters.
Okay.
Which is pretty...
That's really tall.
That's pretty high, yeah.
That's really high considering my example was just going to be the hiking trail in Hong Kong,
it's
which
almost
was
like twice as high as like Ollie Mountain.
Oh wow, that does put things into perspective.
Yeah, so it's very high. When you get up in such a high elevation, like you really notice it gets more difficult to breathe.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really interesting. So that's the tallest mountain I think I've ever hiked.
The tallest one that I hiked was the one in Hong Kong called Dragon's Back, and it was only 284 meters. But
oh, that's not very tall.
It's not very tall, but like I said, there was a great beach at the end, so it made it all worth it.
Oh, okay. Yeah, if there's a beach at the end, it must be pretty close to sea level.
Yes, yeah, exactly.
It would have to be.
Yeah, but I'm excited to get into today's article, which is The Mountains I Call Home, Part 2.
Let's do it.
In my opinion, the best route to explore in the Great Smoky Mountains National Park is the Cades Cove Loop Road. This 11-mile trail is rich in Appalachian history. Visitors can spend time in old wooden cabins and churches, which show how early European settlers in the Smokies lived centuries ago.
Okay, so the mountains I call home, part 2.
In my opinion, the best route to explore in the Great Smoky Mountains National Park is the Cades Cove Loop Road.
Okay, so the author here is recommending the Cades Cove Loop Road.
Right.
I'm imagining if it's a loop road, a loop just means kind of like a circle, so you go all the way back to where you began.
Right. As you said, this is his personal opinion on what he would most like to visit. So we have this word route, or route, sometimes people would say, and it's a noun, and it basically just means a path or way of going somewhere. So for example, you could say the main route south runs through a hot desert filled with dangerous animals. So when we're using the word route, we can talk about like, you're planning how to get somewhere from point A to point B. This is the route you would take.
Okay. Continuing along, this 11-mile trail is rich in Appalachian history. If we say it's rich in history, that just means there's a lot of history.
Right. It's a very complicated past.
Yeah, and it's just got all kinds of interesting little things. It's rich in history. Visitors can spend time in old wooden cabins in churches, which show how early European settlers in the Smokies lived centuries ago.
Yeah, so wooden cabins are actually just little shelters or little houses that are made of wooden logs or wooden panels.
Yes, I love staying in wooden cabins, like up in the mountains especially.
So cozy.
Yeah, like I have this great memory of being in a wooden cabin in some mountains near Los Angeles, and it was snowing while we were in the cabin, and we had a fire, and there's snow that you could see outside the window. So cozy.
But speaking of European settlers, what is a settler?
Okay. A settler is a person who goes to live in a new country or region.
Right. They
He
settle
goes
in.
to settle there, which would be the verb to settle, right? So for example, in the 16th and 17th centuries, English settlers began to arrive in the Americas.
Right, so that's why a lot of Americans do have British names because that's where they came from and they decided to settle in the Americas. But I'm excited to learn a little bit more about these mountains because I really love mountains.
I think first we need to take a break though, you know? We need to soak in all the information that we've taken in so far before we get overloaded. So let's take a break.
Hello， 大家好，我是 Hanny。我们今天要继续跟着作者探索大烟山国家公园。那作者提到，他认为最棒的路线就是凯兹谷地环道。这一条11英里的步道蕴藏着丰富的阿帕拉契历史。游客呢可以花时间在古老的小木屋和教堂那边展示了大烟山早期欧洲定居者几个世纪前他们的生活。好，那单字 route 或是念作 route， 它表示路线、路途或是航线。那么 settler 它表示定居者或是殖民者，也有移民的意思。那老师们在聊到这个小木屋的时候，有用到 cozy C-O-Z-Y cozy 就是形容舒适的、惬意的或是轻松愉快的。我们接着滑课文中。
However, the most exciting aspect of the trail has to be the animals. On an average day, you will likely see herds of deer and flocks of wild turkeys. But if you are lucky, you may spot families of black bears wandering through the woods. One summer, I managed to see 7 black bear cubs in one day, which is something I will never forget. Though the Cades Cove Loop Road is designed for cars, I personally think biking is the best way to travel the route. I once watched from my bike as a mother bear and her 4 cubs crossed the road in front of me. This was very exciting, but I had to remind myself that caution is key when it comes to bears. They may look cute, but just like the park itself, they are wild and should be treated with respect.
Welcome back from the break. How about a recap, Shane?
A recap, you got it. So right before the break, we were talking, or the author was talking about the Cades Cove Loop Road.
That's a tongue twister.
Yeah, and it's an 11-mile loop road where you can see lots of, it's like rich in Appalachian history there. And you can see some old wooden cabins and churches, and it's a really beautiful place to go.
And as we talked about, loop meaning it comes all the way back to the beginning,
Right.
So continuing on with the article, however, the most exciting aspect of the trail has to be the animals.
Yay.
My favorite part, I love animals. And here we actually have this word aspect, and it's a noun, and it just means a certain feature or view of something, okay? So for example, you can say, I hated every aspect of that movie.
Okay.
So not some people will say, oh, I didn't like this aspect, but in this example, they didn't like any of it.
Yeah,
so they said I hated every aspect.
Kind of like a part of something too, right?
Yeah,
An aspect.
a section or a part, yeah.
Okay.
Continuing on, we have the article. On an average day, you will likely see herds of deer and flocks of wild turkeys. So we actually have a couple of measure words here. We have herds and flocks.
Right. So herds, a herd is a group of animals of the same type that live and feed together.
Right.
So for example, you could say a herd of goats was blocking the road, so I couldn't drive any further.
Right.
And we mentioned before, like flocks. Flocks, they often are for birds.
For birds, right.
We'll say a flock of birds.
Right. So we could use it as a verb, just like herd could also be used as a verb. But in this case, we're using it as a noun, right?
So continuing along, but if you are lucky, you may spot families of black bears wandering through the woods.
Now that's something I would like to see.
It's something I would like to see, but
From
I would
afar.
also, I would be also a little bit scared because
of
if
course.
it's a family of black bears, if there's babies, then that might mean that mama bear might be a little bit aggressive. That could be scary, but exciting. Okay, the author continues. One summer, I managed to see 7 black bear cubs in one day, which is something I will never forget.
I mean, I only saw one wild hog in Hong Kong and I still can't stop thinking about it. So I can't imagine 7 black bears?
What other wild animals have you seen, like out in nature? Have you ever seen a bear?
Well, I have seen a bear, but that's usually in the safety of a zoo.
Well, sure. Okay, but out in nature, not in a zoo. Have you ever seen a...
Well, I'm from Singapore, so anytime we would hike, we would actually see a lot of Komodo dragons or monkeys.
Ooh, monkeys. Okay, yeah, I've seen monkeys.
Yeah.
I've never seen a Komodo dragon.
But you won't see a bear anytime soon in Singapore out in the wild. But going back to the article, we have our verb wander, to wander. And that basically means to move around or walk in a relaxed and casual way. You don't really necessarily have a direction that you're going. You could just be wandering through the mall, trying to decide what you want to eat.
Yeah, I do that often.
Yeah, so for example, Tabby wandered around the city, not knowing where she was going. Yeah, it's a little different from being lost though, because lost is you want to try and find direction, but wander is you can do without direction if you
Yeah, but if you are wandering, it's easier to get lost.
Lost, yeah.
Right? Okay, continuing. Though the Cades Cove Loop Road is designed for cars, I personally think biking is the best way to travel the route. I once watched from my bike as a mother bear and her 4 cubs crossed the road in front of me.
See, that's the difference when you're on a bike. You don't miss out on these types of things because it's kind of just right in front of you.
Yeah, but it's again, which makes it a little bit more scary. I feel a little bit safer in my car,
For sure.
I think.
Continuing on, this was very exciting, but I had to remind myself that caution is key when it comes to bears. They may look cute, but just like the park itself, they are wild and should be treated with respect. And this is something that I think a lot of people tend to forget when they are having, they have access to these great trails and these great hiking, trails, but they often forget that they're not entitled to it. So they leave garbage or they take things that, should be left in nature.
Yeah, and they see a cute animal and think, oh, that's going to be fun to play with, but that could be dangerous.
So what do you think, Shane? Is there an area of natural beauty near to where you live? If so, what do you like to do there?
My home is actually really close to Guanyin Mountain.
Yes.
And I love to go hiking there.
Oh.
So it's really close to my house, and there's lots of hiking trails there. And they have from really kind of more easy or moderate to more advanced, where you have to climb up ropes and do stuff like that. And yeah, it's just very beautiful around there, and it's small enough to where it's difficult to get lost.
Right.
So if you're not really sure where you're going, eventually you end up in a spot where there's people and you don't get too confused.
Right. So you can recommend that to someone who's a beginner.
Yeah, someone who's a beginner and you're afraid of getting lost somewhere, you probably won't get lost there.
I don't necessarily live anywhere like that, but I do live near several beaches on the East Coast. So that already to me, I can wake up, look at the views of the mountain and the hills and the beaches, and I think that is already I'm very grateful for that.
Awesome.
But that's all we have for today's episode. I hope you enjoyed it, and we'll see you on the next one.
Okay, thanks for joining us. Bye-bye.
作者接着写到，凯兹谷地环道这条步道当中，最令人兴奋的一面就是动物。在平常日子里，你可能会看见成群的鹿、成群的野生火鸡。运气好的话，或许还能看到黑熊家族在树林当中漫步。我们先来看看单字 aspect。Aspect 它表示方面、层面或是面向。那么 herd 当名词，它表示兽群。herds of 加上名词就可以表达成群的什么什么。好，那补充一下，文中也有用到 flock。那 flock 这个字当名词，则是指这种飞禽或者是羊等等的一大群。好，再看到下一个单字 wander。wander 它表示闲逛。 游荡或是漫步。Winnie 老师来解释单字时，他用到 relaxed。relax 后面再加 ed， 那这个形容词会是形容松懈的或是放松的。好，那么作者最后写到，有一次啊，他骑脚踏车看到一只熊妈妈和4只幼熊在他面前过马路，这令人非常兴奋。可是他也得提醒自己，就是说到熊，谨慎就是关键。它们可能看起来很可爱，可是毕竟是野生的嘛，而且它们是应该要受到尊重的。好，那这边3个重点，我们进入文法时间。我们来看第一个重点是 spot somebody or something， 后面加上现在分词 VING， 那这是表达看见某人事物正在怎么样怎么样。spot 在这边是指看见、注意到，那么受词后面接 VING 表示看到某人事物正在做某事。举例来说 ，We spotted a cat hiding under a car， 我们看见一只猫正躲在车子底下。那另外 spot 后面也可以接 WH 疑问词所引导的子句，或者是 that 子句，像是 Ted spotted that the machine wasn't plugged in。 Ted 发现那台机器没插上插头。好，那么第二个重点是动词 remind， 它表示提醒、使想起。以下介绍几个常见用法。第一个呢，我们可以用 remind somebody of something 去表达使某人想起某事物，提醒某人某事物。例如 The song reminds me of my childhood， 这首歌使我想起童年。第二个用法是 remind somebody 加上 that 子句，可以表达提醒某人某事，像 remind yourself that it's okay to be different， 要提醒自己与众不同也没关系哦。那第三个用法是 remind somebody to 加原形动词，这是提醒某人要做某事。例如 Please remind me to pay my phone bill， 请提醒我要缴电话费。好，那第三个重点是 when it comes to 加上名词或动名词，这是表达说到点点点，提到什么什么。这边要注意 to 是介系词，所以后面是接名词或动名词。举例来说 It's important to know your limits when it comes to swimming。 说到游泳，知道自己的极限很重要。好，那以上这些讲解，同学别走开，马上回来哦。
In my opinion, the best route to explore in the Great Smoky Mountains National Park is the Cades Cove Loop Road. This 11-mile trail is rich in Appalachian history. Visitors can spend time in old wooden cabins and churches, which show how early European settlers in the Smokies lived centuries ago. However, the most exciting aspect of the trail has to be the animals. On an average day, you will likely see herds of deer and flocks of wild turkeys. But if you are lucky, you may spot families of black bears wandering through the woods. One summer, I managed to see 7 black bear cubs in one day, which is something I will never forget. Though the Cades Cove Loop Road is designed for cars, I personally think biking is the best way to travel the route. I once watched from my bike as a mother bear and her 4 cubs crossed the road in front of me. This was very exciting, but I had to remind myself that caution is key when it comes to bears. They may look cute, but just like the park itself, they are wild and should be treated with respect.
Hey, it's KiWi on the street. I'm Kiki.
And I'm Winnie.
Oh, Kiki, you are so cute. Did you know that you are just the bee's knees?
Bee's knees?
My knees are normal. That's not very nice.
Okay, no, Kiki, this is a very common phrase, and it's actually a compliment.
Oh.
It's telling them how sweet you are, how nice you are. You're just the bee's knees.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It has nothing to do with your knees. Your knees are fine.
Okay, so in English, sometimes there are idioms and phrases that might not be what it seems, and it might actually mean something else. So today, we are going to work on some phrases.
Let's go. Okay, so let's work on our phrases. Our first one is
令人厌烦的人或事物.
so a pain in the back or a pain in the neck.
I would choose the pain in the back.
Pain in the back.
I think it's a pain in the back.
A pain in the neck.
Neck?
Yes.
All right, let's see if that's correct. Ding, 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 yes.
Oh, yeah.
Pain in the neck, okay? Somebody is a pain in the neck. What about this next phrase? 暴怒 or 狂怒.
Hit the roof. Oh, I don't know this word, but it seems to be hit the roof.
Hit the roof.
Hit the wall. Maybe hit the wall. It's close to me.
the wall?
Hit the wall.
Okay, I like how you're thinking, but I'm
still wrong?
sorry.
Oh, okay.
You're so angry you hit the roof.
I mean, you're very close to the roof too because you're very
You're
tall.
very tall.
Okay.
Yeah, okay, so what phrases did we learn today? Let's learn about the phrases that we heard today. The first one is a pain in the neck. It is used to describe when a person, place, situation, or thing is difficult, troublesome, or annoying. Another common phrase we hear is pain in the butt, okay? But in the 1900s, they thought that it sounded too rude to use the word butt. So they started using the word neck instead. And since nobody would want to have either of these body parts in pain, this phrase was used to connect the idea that you want difficult and annoying things to disappear quickly from your body. Our next phrase is hit the roof. It means to lose your temper or to experience a sudden anger. This phrase has been used since the 1800s, and it means that someone can be so angry that they feel like blowing up or exploding that they would bang or hit their head on the roof or ceiling. That's it for our phrases today. KiWi later!